The big question still looms. Late Queen knew Meghan and the fake babies, but let the worst happen? Recently, we got some important information from a source, somebody who works for the royal household. Now, this is a woman who works at Sandringham, and she openly admits that she is on the outside. She's pretty far away from what happens at Buckingham Palace and Kensington Palace. But along with the typical thoughts of what's up with those invisible kids, stuff that we have all talked about for years, I'm hearing that staff members still cannot believe that Her Late Majesty allowed such trash to infiltrate the royal family. Now, these are her words, not mine. Many people seem incredulous that the late Queen would have allowed Harry to marry such a piece of garbage. But actually, I don't really see it that way. He wasn't the spare anymore because William was already married and he already had kids. Therefore, Harry's marriage simply was not as important to the institution of the monarchy as it would have been in the past. Another thing is that everybody in the family knew what we all know now and even more about Harry. All the ugly parts of his personality, all the deficient aspects of his emotional condition, too. After he was publicly rejected by two excellent former girlfriends, I'm guessing the family was initially happy that at least somebody out there wanted to marry him. And of course, he was urged on by that nasty woman with various schemes, including possible fake pregnancies, so Harry put himself on a fast track. Only his beloved older brother cautioned him to please follow his own example and take some time to get to know the woman. But of course, Harry didn't listen to his advice. And we know how obsequious and genteel the palace courtiers are. For goodness sakes, they hesitated over the most subtle, elegant words spoken on the planet. Recollections may vary. It took the daughter and descendant of some good middle class people, Catherine, now the Princess of Wales, to provide the strength to keep that phrase in. So, most likely, all the shenanigans, all the nonsense generated by Meghan Markle was carefully hidden and absorbed as it floated up the chain, and it was only whispered about in hushed tones among the trusted employees. I am absolutely convinced that the late Queen was one of the last people to understand what a nasty monster she was, and that she had quietly weaseled her way into the family. The Queen was such an amazing example of a Christian woman until the very end. When I read that she again and again invited them to come visit her at Balmoral, I felt like, even until the very end, she was hoping to turn things around for them. She was hoping to give her grandson the best advice that she possibly could, to please use his time on this sacred earth in a better way. The late Queen was an incredibly intelligent woman, but she also lived a very long life, and she had an understanding of human character and change that not many people in this world could even aspire to. So she always understood how to play the long game, and she always held on to hope and compassion. Harry, though, I do not understand what is wrong with him. I mean, what a fool for throwing away the most precious experience that he could have had to be by her side in her last moments on this earth. And that Meghan Markle is an absolute demon. The world is never going to forgive her for the role she played in his ultimate fall from grace. I'll continue, though, probably for the rest of my life, to feel sad for Her Late Majesty the Queen. I mean, Meghan and Harry hurt her so badly in her last years on this earth. The late Queen was experiencing such terrible physical pain, and then look at the emotional pain Harry and Meghan heaped upon her. Either refuse consent and Harry was going to run off and marry Meghan anyway, and then accuse his own family of being racist, which may have been believed, or she had to give consent to protect the monarchy from that dangerous racism scenario and just allow things to play out as they would. I am still convinced there was blackmail involved in all of this. I'm sure that Meghan Markle had some info on Harry that he didn't want to get out. So it was really a case of what Harry wanted, Harry got. He was manipulated in all of this by Meghan Markle. But anyway, the monarchy has certainly survived the storm, and if anything, they're enjoying more support than before. So I think the Queen knew what she was doing. She made the right decision by allowing Meghan to come into the family, even though it seems horrible. But seriously, look at what happened anyway. Now Harry is having to face the consequences of that rushed marriage. I mean, actually, both of them are suffering because now Meghan's life is on hold while she's awaiting a richer person to come along and agree to marry her so that she can finally dump Harry. Now Meghan Markle is getting pretty long in the tooth, and Harry would be an absolute nightmare to be married to. Can you imagine? I think it tells us a lot that Gordon Getty and Tyler Perry both avoided Meghan. What in the world, though, is wrong with Elon Musk? Isn't he single again? I'm guessing Meghan has reached out to him. She really is checking all those billionaires off her list. I have heard, after all, that Meghan knows how to make a pretty excellent roast chicken. I also believe that if Her Late Majesty's sister, the late Princess Margaret, were still living and mentally there, when Harry brought that nasty piece of trash home, all hell would have broken loose. She was deprived, after all, of a happy marriage to a British officer because he had already been divorced. I mean, for all her faults, I think she would have put a lot of pressure on the Queen to refuse them that wedding or any titles or the royal duties, too. It was so clear to all the palace staff, the courtiers, and many media and royal watchers too, including myself, that that woman was going to cause so many problems for the monarchy. And I understand. Margaret acted up sometimes, and sometimes she was a little indiscreet, but that was only because she was trapped in that loveless marriage. Her husband was not the right man for her. Prince Philip knew what he was talking about when he told Harry it's okay to date an actress, but it's not okay to marry one. William and Catherine were not fooled from the very beginning, and I'm sure that M5 or M6 must have some information about Meghan's father, Mr. Thomas Markle. I mean, his past is pretty sketchy, but I don't believe they were expecting such a narcissistic, toxic personality with Meghan Markle. For so many people, the big red flag at first was that engagement interview. It rang false as to their dating history. There was just so much inconsistency. What was a big mistake, though, was when a few incidents happened before they even got married. Like Meghan sneaking around taking photos in the palace, taking photos of the Cambridge kids, for example. Meghan was caught rifling around in Harry's car while he was trying to play polo. The Queen should have known that Meghan Markle should not be allowed to join the family. So, why exactly was the marriage allowed? Perhaps, as many people think, she told Harry that she was pregnant. At some point, apparently, he had actually broken up with her. And then she invited herself to the wedding of Harry's best friend, Tom Inskip. The photos do suggest that this is when something happened. As time passed, so many people began to understand Meghan's real nature. Her family and some of her friends knew, but they were not heard, and that's why Meghan pushed them away. I really believe the royal family simply did not expect this to be such a disaster. When you have a lot of power and privilege, there is this mindset of, oh, no, no, nobody would dare do that. It's simply not done when it comes to the actions of other people. They already knew that Meghan Markle had some problems. They also believed that once she was groomed a little bit, she would finally be able to adapt. She would settle in and she would understand how to act right. After all, didn't she love Harry? Maybe she lacked some culture, maybe she wasn't very well educated, but still, they would work hard to help her fix those problems. They would assign her the best helpers ever. They would give her some access. They would maybe bend the rules a little bit and she would be okay, or so they thought. But see, I don't think they understood about narcissism. I don't think they understood how manipulative she is. I think that with this creature, they were just a little bit out of their depth. At first, when Meghan Markle was caught being in places where she wasn't allowed to be, they accepted her excuse that she was lost. Unfortunately, though, photos were taken, and then again and again. And finally, people started to realize what was going on. Meghan was escorted away back to Canada. Nothing the family said, though, was going to discourage Harry at this point. Harry was truly love bombed in the most remarkable ways. He was hooked on the weird sex, the drugs, and the booze that Meghan loved to offer. He had to have all of that. He had already told her way too much anyway. So they had a little plan to get away and make money at both ends. They even had dreams of being king and queen of the Commonwealth. And see, Harry was too in love with this idea of being bigger, more famous than his brother. He was never going to give up Meghan. So he decided to stab his family in the back again and again. There was something that Harry was using to get his family, and we don't know what that was. Maybe it was criminal behavior he knew about, maybe some information they didn't want to get out, who knows. But it was insurance. And perhaps it was just that they were willing to tell so many lies. Well, it looks like it worked, though, and that's why we are where we are today. Really, Charles and William would have faced the same dilemma that the late Queen did. It's not like they could refuse consent because then there would be the accusation of racism, which could have easily messed with the monarchy big time. At that point, the public did not realize what Meghan was like, and Harry was incredibly popular. So they would have had to do the same thing the late Queen had to do welcome her into the family and just hope for the best, but also get ready for the worst. Now, if the racial aspect hadn't been there, I think the Queen would have been able to refuse. And you, what do you think about this issue? Let us know your opinion below in the comments section, and we can also talk about the Sussexes. Don't be afraid to like and share my video with your friends and family members who need it anytime you want. And don't be afraid to click the subscribe button to get more updates in the future. Thank you so much for tuning in, have a lovely weekend, and we'll be back to see you all tomorrow.